Hey fam, welcome to Life More Abundantly, the podcast where we talk Black health like we talk everything else, real, out loud, and with love. I'm Dr. Eboni Haynes.
And I'm Dr. Tynisha Camae Drennon.
We've got a lot to talk about today, so let's get into today's episode.
Let go. All right, Ebony, what's up first?
All right, so let's talk about the Oscars.
Yes. I want to say it was the Black Oscars, but it wasn't. But that's okay. We had our platforms, and we appreciate our platforms for being there for us, for the culture. Of course, I want to talk about the record 16 nominations that Sinners had at the Academy Awards. It's unprecedented. Well-deserved. In the same context, a little bit disappointed. We knew the Oscars was going to do what they do, right? They weren't going to win them all, which is fine.
Right.
You know, it needs to be spread out a little bit, but they won 4. They took home Best Original Screenplay, so Ryan Coogler's first Oscar. Best Original Score by the guy we invite to the cookouts, Ludwig Göransson. But he's been working with Ryan Coogler for quite some time, so we still are excited for him. Best cinematography also changed the game in that autumn around Arkapaw, thank you. Won for Best Cinematography, and it's the first time a Black person, let alone a Black woman, has won in this category. So we are super doubly excited for her to win, especially during Women's History Month.
That's right.
She made history during Women's History Month. So we're super, super proud of her. And I liked even her acceptance speech. She asked all the women in the crowd to stand up. And she was like, there is no me getting here without all of you.
That's
I just thought that that is so amazing to acknowledge how many other women have kicked the door in,
wide open,
down, all the things for her to be able to get there. And then, of course, most of our opinions, the most well-deserved Oscar, besides Ryan Coogler, of course, went for Best Actor, Michael B. Jordan. The only man I'm going to be a cougar for. What? Yes. But he not cougar-ish. I think he's 39 now. Like,
he's legal.
Yeah, we in a perfect age gap. Like, I'm not even 10 years older than him. Hey, Michael, I ain't going to fumble you like Lori did. Okay, I digress. But I was just saying.
You see, he didn't respond to her text messages.
That part. He's fine. He's a nice guy. He's humble. He take his mama everywhere.
He went to In-N-Out Burger.
We went to In-N-Out. I was like, first of all, before we go over here to this party, I'm going to get me a cheeseburger. Is what I'm going to do. Good old-fashioned burger. Extra mayo, because I'm that dude.
Classic.
So that was amazing. And, you know, the other thing I'll take away from the Oscars is Delroy Lindo. He was nominated for his first Academy Award as well. And all night, Delroy Lindo's face, I think, could be the new meme poster child for everything, like this some bull. A man's face was consistent. This some bull. Even when Michael Jordan won, he was up congratulating him, patting on the back, giving him the love, all the love, but he still was like looking around like, y'all know this some bull.
Right.
So
y'all know it, we know it, everybody knows
Everybody know it. Michael B. Jordan now joins the class of Black men who've won an Academy Award. He is the 6th Black man to win an Academy Award, which is really sad for Best Actor. Let me clarify, for Best Actor, and however long the Academy has been in existence. And
I think 98 years.
How many years?
I think it's 98.
Yeah, I think so too. It's almost 100 years and only 6 Black men have won. It always has been questionable, the roles that they have won for, except for Sidney Poitier. But Michael B. Jordan definitely played a character that we could all agree was very fascinating. And
2 characters.
2 characters, right? And the dimension of that is amazing. As you know, all the other bodies of work have been really, really good as well that the Black men have won for. but there has been
Right.
precedents that they've been robbed previously, and so then they were
Mhm.
compensated with this award. So I'm excited about that, and of course, we'll remember that Halle Berry is still the
Mm,
only African American woman to win as Best Leading Actress, and we know the
correct.
controversy around that role and how Halle Berry had to be depicted to even be
Mhm.
considered for that Academy
Mhm.
Award. And there have been many critics who have likened the nomination of Tiana Taylor's character
Right.
to that same type of stereotypical role, if you will, in
Mhm.
terms of the subjugation of Black women to white men.
Right. Yeah. You remember a few years ago, the hashtag Oscar so white? And it seems like
Yeah,
that was eons ago, but it really wasn't. And I feel like there was a lot of people talking about the Oscars during that time, but we still haven't really seen Black people and other people of color really get their due at the Oscars. And so, I do appreciate the fact that Sinners was nominated for as many awards as they were nominated for and then won the awards that they did, but let's be real, there are plenty of Black folks out here doing amazing work in the industry who are really
absolutely.
just not being acknowledged for their supreme talent.
Absolutely. And I will say, one of the reasons the Academy Award is so coveted is because peers in the industry are voting for one another.
Mhm.
And I remember them announcing on the night of the Academy Awards that Ryan Coogler chose to remove himself from the Academy voting process because he doesn't like judging others. And I think this just goes back to the overarching theme about voting,
Mhm.
right? We have to be able to cast our vote in order to support the work that comes out of our community because if we
Mhm.
just leave it up to the others,
Right.
who take up the majority of the voting ballots, then we are subject to be disappointed
Mhm.
seemingly every time.
Absolutely. Good point.
Well, on a more complicated note, let's transition
Mhm.
to this young lady out of Villa Vicar, Georgia.
Yes.
Tell us a little bit about that.
So, yeah, by now everyone has probably heard about this story. I remember you and I talked about this a few weeks ago because
Right.
it was all in my social media feed. But these were stories that were coming out from individuals.
Right.
And, we try to do a really good job of vetting stories before we air them.
Mhm.
But I remember seeing particularly on Facebook, lots of Facebook posts telling this young lady's story. She was a 12-year-old Black female from Villa Rica, Georgia. She had been bullied by a girl at school, and the family had notified the school district and had done all of the things that you would think to do if your child was being bullied. Lo and behold, one day, these two girls are at the bus stop and a fight ensues.
Wow.
During the fight, apparently the little girl fell, she hit her head, and later it was noted that she sustained a brain injury
Mm.
and she ended up dying from that incident. And so a lot of people have heard about the story because former basketball player Shaq has now
Wow.
gotten involved and he's committed to paying for the funeral for this little girl to alleviate that stress on the family. However, it's just a really terrible situation. And it took the media so long to actually share this story.
Wow.
So now it's out there.
Mhm.
And it's raising a lot of questions about what do parents do? What do guardians do when their kids are being bullied at school? From how it appears in the videos that I've seen, it looks like the girl who was bullying her was also Black. But, there have been lots of incidents where Black kids have been bullied by
Mhm.
non-Black people,
Mhm.
all
Mhm.
across the US, and school
Sure.
districts have not taken those complaints seriously.
And it's so interesting that you're saying that, and it's true what you're saying is that it's not being taken seriously. It hasn't been that long ago that anti-bullying laws were put into place.
That's
And
right.
so, I would wonder, and I'm interested in knowing, okay, if there are anti-bullying laws in place, then when do the police get involved?
Mhm.
If the school is not willing, because you want to take the proper steps and protocol, but if you're not seeing any results, then at what point do we call on the police, right?
Right.
Because as a parent, I would think I would go to another parent and say, "Hey, there's a problem between our kids." And if we
Mhm.
can't get anywhere from that, then notify the school. If we can't get anywhere from that, then it's time to notify the police. So I'm really sad to hear that these occurrences are still happening
Mhm.
since the age of anti-bullying laws. Bullying, we know bullying is not a new thing. Even having a
Right.
fight is not a new thing.
Mhm.
Certainly. Ooh, child, I've gotten
Child.
off the bus a couple times. Lord, minding my own business, and just
Mhm.
somebody who been saying and doing things at school the whole bus ride home, and then we get off the bus, and I know I'm in eyesight of the house,
That's right.
and
Same.
it got to be what it got to be. And thank God there were no travesties that
Mhm.
have occurred.
Mhm.
And it's kind of ironic to say this. I'm glad that it was a fist fight and not a gunfight, right?
Right.
Um,
Mhm.
but a death still occurred.
Mhm.
And to me, as you said, it's not been in the media that much, but also where are the assault and involuntary manslaughter charges?
Right. I think they probably will be forthcoming, especially now that it's gotten so much more attention. Villa Rica is really not that big of a town. And so I don't know that much about it, but I pass through it pretty often on my way to Birmingham. But I do anticipate that there will be some charges that are brought. I definitely know one of Atlanta's top civil rights attorneys has gotten involved.
Oh, okay.
So I think there will be charges brought against this young lady. But it also brings up for me a situation that I became aware of recently. One of my friends told me about a situation in her neighborhood where the parent was also a bully.
A bully as a parent or a bully as a child?
A bully as a parent.
Okay.
And I will say this, a lot of times kids learn their behavior from
Absolutely.
the folks that they live with, the people that they spend a lot of time with. And so as parents, we have a responsibility
Mm-hmm.
to make sure that we are not just telling our kids what to do and what not to do, but also demonstrating through our own behavior
Sure.
what's appropriate, what's not, what it means to be in community with one
Absolutely.
another. And so I would encourage any parents, any grandparents, any aunties, uncles, if you got people in your family
Right.
who are bullies, more than likely their kids are picking up on that behavior. So
Mm-hmm.
do what you can to interrupt that cycle. I remember being bullied like you when I was in school. The only two fights I've ever been in, aside from my little fights with my cousins and
Yeah,
stuff
yeah,
like that,
yeah.
were because I was literally at my wit's end
Right.
and just refused to take it anymore. The
Sure.
school had been notified.
Yeah.
The bus driver did everything the bus driver thought she could do. But
Mm,
at the end of the day, it ended up in a fight and I
yeah.
ended up getting suspended. And so that was not fair because you feel like you have to defend yourself,
Right.
but then you still have to suffer the consequences for defending yourself. That should not be what kids expect when they go to school every day, for them to be
Absolutely.
bullied and then for the adults to not intervene appropriately.
Right. 1,000% agree with everything you're saying. I also, as we've talked about, parents becoming responsible and taking the charges, the
Hmm.
criminal charges. Will the parents be held responsible in this scenario as well? And so I just hate that people are still so mean.
Hmm.
And mean to the point where they have to be physical. It's bad
Right.
enough if you're saying the things that are hurtful to my feelings, but to actually have to engage in a fight, and this probably is not the first time, and unfortunately probably will not be the last time that a fatality occurred
Hmm.
because of something superficial. Because whatever grade this young lady was in, it can't be that deep.
Right. Exactly. You're 12 years old. Like you haven't even lived life. What are you upset about?
Right.
I think that it also stems from the fact that kids do not learn conflict resolution.
Mm-hmm.
Have not been learning how to express their feelings
Mm-hmm.
in a way that's respectful to everyone.
Mm-hmm.
And, I'm in and out of schools in our local area, and
Mm-hmm.
you just be surprised at kids who have no emotional regulation. And unfortunately, a lot of these kids are labeled, but I think sometimes some of these kids' challenges are that they have not learned how to control their emotions. They have not
Mm-hmm.
been taught how to control their emotions. They have not been disciplined appropriately
Mm-hmm.
when, they have lashed out at younger ages,
Right.
right? And so when you don't correct behavior at younger ages, then what do you expect when kids get older?
Right.
And so now it becomes a challenge for not just parents to deal with, but also for schools to deal with, the community to deal with. And then you get to a point where you have no choice but to call the police in a situation.
Right.
That's not us being in community with each other,
Mhm. Mhm.
right? So we definitely have to get back to a point where we see ourselves as being responsible for all of the community's kids. And
Sure.
parents have to be okay when your kid is acting up in the grocery store, if someone else says something to them,
Mhm. Yeah.
you need to be okay with that.
Yeah, I agree with that. You can't say nothing to somebody else's kids right now. And you're
Right.
right. You might end up in an altercation with somebody because
Hello.
you said something to the child about them being inappropriate. You know, our parents tell the story, you couldn't do nothing in the neighborhood. And if Miss Sheila called your mother,
That's right.
the fact
It
that
was
she was
over.
doing what you was doing and you had to make
Mhm.
the call, and my mom talks
Mhm.
about Miss Sheila woulda gave you a spanking,
That's right.
made the call, and you woulda got home and
Mhm.
got the spanking that you did what you was doing, and the call was made, and she had to give you a spanking. And so we really
Exactly.
have, like you said, gotten away from that.
Mhm.
Part of it is because we don't even know our neighbors anymore, right? Or very
Mhm.
seldomly do we get to know our neighbors for all sorts of reasons. I remember in Philadelphia, Pastor Holler of Enon Baptist Church talked about we all have backyards now. Whereas when we used
Mhm.
to have front yards, people would sit on the porch and you had no choice but to meet your neighbors because they would walk by,
Mhm.
you would chit chat, so forth and so on. And then now, of course, in the age of apartments being built up left and right, we just don't get a chance to know our neighbors, to even know
Mhm.
the parents at school, really.
Mhm.
We barely interact with them. And so I agree with you in terms of getting back to community, to kind of police our own children and our own families,
Mhm.
because really the last resort is that we want law enforcement involved in our business because we got enough problems with them. But if we
That's
need it,
right.
then you got to do it. So,
Right.
and once your child is in school, they ought to be taught de-escalation.
Mhm.
They ought to be taught conflict resolution. You know, as you were saying that, I was thinking, I've talked about this several times, that my son is autistic. Like half of his therapies in different disciplines is about de escalating his emotions. And so,
Mhm.
why is it that we teach that to special needs children and not all children?
Mhm. Great point. Great point. And parents, I know it's really tough, especially if you're working hours that are not conducive to this or if you're working multiple jobs. But I think, we need to see more parents at bus stops, right? So
Mm-hmm.
what would happen if there was a parent, one parent that
Mm-hmm.
was at least at the bus stop and monitoring? A lot of times we can help de-escalate a situation just with our presence. So there may be opportunities for parents, guardians, loved ones, an adult to be at the bus stop, even with our middle schoolers, even with our high schoolers,
Mm-hmm.
just in case,
Just
because
in
you just
case.
never know.
So true. And it's sad that we have to think that way, but you just never know. Yeah.
Mhm. All right.
Mm.
All right. Well, what is happening this week in Black history?
Well, this week celebrates Vanessa Williams. She is a singer and a model. She is the first African American woman to have been crowned Miss America, not just Miss Black America, but Miss
That's
America
right.
and Miss America, which was such a feeling of pride when that happened, to see our beauty on display, even though what we acknowledge as beauty has changed, right?
Good point.
Because she was stereotypical beauty, but still beauty. But
Mhm.
now we understand and we uplift all different types of beauty. However, she was eventually stripped of her crown for having
Of course
posed
she was.
in, right, of course, right? Why wouldn't she be? They look for any reason after having been photographed. I think it was for Playboy, and she was somewhat positioned in between another model's legs. It was considered inappropriate contact for her career to continue to elevate, which she did move forward, but it was quite a salacious scandal. And as I was thinking about that, they stripped her of her Miss America crown, but the First Lady of the United States,
Yes, speak on it.
her whole entire career has been salacious. Her life has been salacious, from how she became an immigrant, her rise to fame, the person
Mhm.
she chose to marry,
Mhm.
the things that she's done allegedly. but in black and white print at the Epstein Island, which was ironically omitted from her documentary. But
Interesting.
she is supposed to be given part of the highest esteem of respect, and they strip Vanessa Williams of this title.
Yeah. And she's the only first lady who posed nude, right?
Right.
For money in
Mhm.
print for
Mhm.
all the world to see.
For all the world to see.
But we haven't seen the same level of magazine covers depicting her in negative ways like we did with former First Lady Michelle Obama.
Who was fully
So
dressed.
absolutely, who has always been the epitome of professionalism and
Mhm.
class and
Mhm.
intelligence.
Mhm.
And we have not seen the same depiction of Melania, although there is
Absolutely.
so much that we can talk about when it comes to her.
So much that
Yeah,
we could criticize from head to toe, front to back, each
literally,
side. Okay.
literally.
And then you wanted to remind us of
Oh,
another
yeah. And then Aretha Franklin, the Queen of Soul, was also born in Detroit, Michigan this week. So happy heavenly birthday to Aretha Franklin, Soror
happy
Aretha
heavenly
Franklin.
birthday, an icon in the music
Yes.
industry. And I'm sorry, an icon in death because she is the only person who had a 16-hour funeral with 3 wardrobe changes. That part.
Hello.
The wardrobe
Hello.
changes is what did it for me. It's just
I
happy birthday in
love it.
heaven, diva, and I know you still got your pocketbook full of cash.
That's right. That's right. Excellent. All right. Well, some other things that happened in Black history this week. March 24th, 1837, Black citizens in Canada actually gained the right to vote. Which marked an important step in civic inclusion in the country. And, when I was thinking about this, initially I was going to bypass the year 1837. And then I realized that Black citizens in Canada were granted the right to vote even before Blacks were emancipated here in the US, because that didn't happen till, 1863 was when the Emancipation Proclamation was signed, but it wasn't until 1865 that all of the Blacks in the US, were informed
Wow.
that they were emancipated. So it should come as no surprise that Black people are, especially during this administration, are more and more interested in moving to Canada.
Right.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
where we're still, seen as human and treated with respect and dignity. That's good news. It just makes me sad that we always have to be given the right,
Mhm.
right? We were taken from our country and we have to be given a right to do X, Y, and Z. And as a human being, that's very frustrating as a Black
Mhm.
human being. So we celebrate
Yeah.
these wins with conflict, I guess. Two things can be true at the same time. We can celebrate a win and be disappointed that we still have to fight for those wins. And we literally
Mhm.
are still fighting for those voting rights. So,
Literally.
so
Yeah. And then what else happened this week in Black history? In 1931, 9 Black teenage boys and young men were riding on a train in Alabama through Scottsboro, Alabama. And 2 white women on the train actually accused those 9 Black boys and young men of raping them.
oh
And
my.
so it became something that the nation was paying attention to. And these 9 boys were then considered the Scottsboro Boys.
Mm,
And they were arrested. They were put on trial almost immediately. And if you remember, like, we're talking about this being during the Jim Crow era, where it was very commonplace for white people to make false claims against Black people, especially men and boys. It was not uncommon for those claims to come from white women because of all of the stereotypes that Black men and Black boys were, just drawn to white women, couldn't keep their hands off of white women, wanted to be with
mm,
white women, wanted to rape white women. And so for a white woman to accuse a Black male of rape was like the ultimate crime
mm.
against humanity.
Isn't
And
it
so
still?
it still is, despite the fact that we have a lot of interracial relationships and marriages today, it really is still the case. And so these boys were eventually convicted, not by a jury of their peers. And fortunately, they did have a legal team who was working to assist them. And although they were convicted, those convictions eventually reached the U.S. Supreme Court for a ruling. And the Supreme Court did come through for them and ruled that the defendants had been denied their right to an adequate counsel, but
Wow.
then also that because Alabama had excluded Black citizens from the juries, that was unconstitutional.
Mm.
Yeah. It's a reminder that justice delayed is often justice denied. There were some individuals who were exonerated of those crimes. However, of course, the district attorney found ways to charge them with other crimes so
Oh,
that they
wow.
would continue to be incarcerated, continue to, to not be able to live out their youths, to be part of the criminal justice
Mm.
system. And many of them spent years in prison. And so, of course,
Wow.
their lives were permanently changed after that. So, yeah, we talk a lot about the
Injustice.
importance of being involved in our political process.
Right.
It's so important to vote. It's so important to serve on juries.
Yes.
But for me, it's just as important for us to not forget this history.
Mm-hmm.
Because if you don't know your history, you don't know when things are happening that seem like history is repeating or people are repeating the things that we've seen happen in
Sure.
the past. So we
Absolutely.
gotta know our history and not forget the Scottsboro Boys case. It was a significant case in Black history as it relates to our fight for justice and equality in the justice system.
Okay. Well, thanks for making us aware of that. I just want to say, on a positive note, to go back and shout out Shaquille O'Neal, for taking care of that young lady's funeral. I don't know how he got wind of the information, but I think that was an incredible philanthropic thing to do as well.
Absolutely. And I wouldn't be surprised if this story has started picking up in the news because of Shaq's involvement. It's, I think, important for our celebrities, people who have platforms, to also be connected to the news, to understand their history, and to not shy away from it. When they see injustice, they need to speak out, because in their speaking out, they are generating more buzz about issues that are impacting Black and Brown communities all across the country.
Absolutely. Awesome. Woo. Well, what's our topic for today?
All right, so this week we are highlighting National Colorectal Cancer Awareness Month and focusing on why this issue matters deeply in the Black community. If you didn't know, colorectal cancer is actually one of the most preventable cancers when it is detected early. Yet,
Mm-hmm.
in our communities, it's still a serious issue because we often experience delayed screening and diagnosis. We experience limited access to care. And then also, we experience lower awareness of the early warning signs of colorectal cancer. So, it's definitely something that we need to make sure that we're staying on top of. Black Americans are twice as likely to be diagnosed with colorectal cancer and more likely to die from it than many other racial ethnic groups due to our delayed diagnoses.
That's crazy because, it often begins as pileups, which are small growths that can turn cancerous over time. And the reason why it's most preventable is because you can have a colonoscopy and the
Mm-hmm.
polyps can be taken out.
Mm-hmm.
And most people don't want to do it. I hear men saying they don't want anything stuck up their behind. And I hear women saying, they don't like the solution you have to drink to
Mm-hmm.
clean your system out to get the colonoscopy. And these both are just superficial reasons to not get
Right.
checked out. And we cannot say enough that screening helps prevent the higher death
Right.
rates.
Mm-hmm.
Do you want to talk about what the signs and symptoms may be?
Sure. Some of the symptoms of colorectal cancer are things like, bowel changes, persistent bowel changes, blood in your stool, unexplained weight loss. All of those things are telltale signs that you might be experiencing some challenges with your colon. And there are lots of other things that can cause blood in your stool and unexplained weight loss. Still, the key is for you to not delay going to the doctor to have it checked out because it may be colorectal cancer. And again, if it's caught early, then you have a 91% survival rate from it.
Mm.
So the other thing that you mentioned that I think is important for us to touch on is how men feel about not having something stuck up their butt,
Mm-hmm.
and the women really feel like they don't want to drink the solution. As it relates to feelings of maybe being violated or, being uncomfortable because a doctor is giving you a rectal exam before you
Mm-hmm.
go and have a
Mm-hmm.
colonoscopy,
Mm-hmm.
that is what? A 2-minute
Right.
period of being uncomfortable?
Right. And you're under anesthesia for the actually colonoscopy.
But when you're in the doctor's office and the doctor is giving you a rectal exam, number one, it's 2 minutes or less.
Mm-hmm.
Number two, it's a medical professional that's doing
Mm-hmm.
something that they are trained to do in
Absolutely.
order to determine whether you are, especially if you are not the recommended age to get a
Right.
colonoscopy, right? But they're doing that exam to determine whether you maybe need to go get your colonoscopy a little bit earlier
Mm.
than what's recommended.
Right. And that's why we say the answer is more uncomfortable.
Especially since colorectal cancer tends to kill people quickly.
Mhm.
So think about your family, think about your legacy, think about all of the things that you want to do in life. If you got colorectal cancer
Right.
and it's not treatable, then think about all of the things that you're leaving on the table that you
Absolutely.
can't do.
Absolutely.
Being uncomfortable for 2 minutes
Mm-hmm.
is not worth me losing my life early and all of the
Definitely
pain that
not.
I would bring to my family. Same thing with the solution that you have to drink. And this is true for both men and women.
Mm-hmm.
But the technology has improved. And so the solutions are better.
Mm-hmm.
The
Mm-hmm.
formulas that they have
And
created are much
sometimes you
better.
can mix, depending on your doctor, you can mix it with like country time lemonade. And so it just tastes like
Exactly.
lemonade sometimes.
Exactly. There are so many different types of the preparation that
Mm-hmm.
you can drink before your
Mm-hmm.
colonoscopy, that it doesn't have to be the experience that your parents had when they
Right.
had to get their colonoscopies,
Right.
right? So you need to talk to your doctor about the different types of solutions and what might work best for you. But
Absolutely.
still, at the end of the day, me having this day of discomfort with what I'm ingesting, what I'm
Right.
drinking in
Right.
order for me to prepare for this colonoscopy is still worth it when I
Right.
think about the potential of living a long life and all that I will be able to do with my family during that time.
Right. And some people are like, I can't eat all day. Most of us can miss a meal. So you just hold on, hold
Facts.
on. Some of the risk factors, of course, are older age. I believe that the starting age for colonoscopy is at 45,
Mhm.
right? But the older you are, the more at high risk you are for everything. So you want to get it. If you have a bowel disease like Crohn's or ulcerative colitis, you want to get checked sooner. Family history, of course, of colorectal cancer. I've mentioned this before. I have a friend whose father and two brothers all died from colorectal cancer, and so not only did he start getting his screenings earlier than 45, but he also has them more frequently. Instead of
Mhm.
once every 5 years, I believe he goes either every year or twice a year. So, in our community, we hear a lot. What I don't know won't kill me, or what you don't know could kill you. And
Mhm.
so you need to get checked out. Certainly some other risk factors we know obesity makes you at higher risk for everything, smoking the same, alcohol consumption. But this is a key one. This is a key one. Eating lots of red meat and processed food.
Mhm.
Undercooked raw meat. I mean, there's a trend right now of red meat. You want it. What do they say? How
A
to
little
order in a
bloody.
restaurant? Bloody. Yes.
Mhm.
And unfortunately, that contributes to cancer and pileups. The meat itself may make you more susceptible to pileups. And then processed foods, we have talked about here before. And it's hard not to have processed food in some form, right? Because
Mhm.
even the chicken you think you buying fresh chicken, but there's a process and
Mm.
and our food is contaminated, right? Even
Mhm.
real food. But when you're
Mhm.
eating, flaming hot Cheetos and drinking your Mountain Dews and
Mhm. And Takis.
Takis and pizza rolls and, this kind of stuff, it definitely can lead to all kinds of health conditions. So, we
Right.
don't want people to give up everything, but we do want to teach moderation.
Moderation. And then also just being mindful that, foods that have a lot of nitrates in them also
Mhm,
definitely contribute to colorectal cancer. A lot of the processed foods that are in our cuisine, right?
mhm,
It includes things that we should be limiting in our diets, things like bacon. And I know that's a big one for
mm,
me. So I do try to limit my bacon intake, but bacon, sausage, hot dogs, bologna,
mm,
ham,
mm.
pork products like ham hocks, neck bones. I remember going to a conference one year and a Black doctor got up on stage and he was doing his thing, but he really impressed upon us at this conference to stop eating hot dogs. And I
Wow.
was just like, why is he so hyper focused on hot dogs? But, these are the foods that tend to be high in salt, high in
Mhm.
fat, and also when we think about hot dogs and, some of the other things that we tend to have in our diets because these were the
But
slave diets,
yes,
right?
what we had access to.
What we had access to, we're good for making anything taste good,
Right.
right? Even if it's the worst parts of the animal. And so
Mhm,
oftentimes when we think about hot dogs, like it's all of the leftover stuff
mhm.
just kind of gets mushed together and put into a hot dog.
A plastic
And so
sleeve.
right. And those things are not good for us. We need to be more mindful of those items that are in our diets and
Sure.
cut back heavily,
Yes,
right? Cut back heavily on those things to
yes,
reduce your risk of colorectal
absolutely.
cancer.
And then you also wanna increase your fiber intake.
Mhm.
Whether
That's
it
right.
be take something over the counter, but of course we know eating more fruits and vegetables,
The
vegetables
best
high
type of
in
fiber.
fiber are the best way to prevent this and help keep things moving. Prunes, kiwis, apples,
Mhm.
strawberries. These are things that kind of help things keep moving.
Yeah, and even eating the skin of those fruits and vegetables, if you can. So it's
Mhm.
usually the skin that has a lot of the fiber. So
Okay.
you definitely
That's a
want
good
to try to
distinction.
eat the skin too. We just need to be sure that we are using as much of the fruit or vegetable as possible in our diet as opposed to throwing it away because that's what we're accustomed to.
Mm.
Because a lot of times that's where a lot of the fiber exists.
Interesting. I think that might be a little known fact to many of our listeners. So
Yeah.
thank you for sharing that. Of course, you want to exercise. Exercise helps everything. And always advocate for yourself, right? Because
Mhm.
sometimes we'll be dismissed. If you feel like your body is off, something's not right, then you need to let
Mhm.
the doctor know. And if your doctor is dismissive because you're too young, or maybe your colonoscopy was perfectly fine 10 years ago, well, I
Mm,
need another one, make sure it's
right.
is is good right now.
Especially,
And
yeah, if you have unexplained diarrhea, unexplained fatigue,
mhm,
unexplained stomach pain, yeah,
mhm.
you need to press for that.
Absolutely. And then or even unexplained weight loss. I'll take it, but
Mhm.
I'm just saying, if you're dropping and you're not doing anything different, you definitely want to get that checked out. And then as we were talking about the uncomfortability of a colonoscopy, there are also other things that you can do, like stool-based tests. That they have a
Mhm.
fit test. They have something called Cologuard. They mail it to
Mhm.
your house. You mail it back and find out if follow-up is needed. So that can be the initial step as well if you're just completely against having an initial rectal examination.
Right. Or if you live in a rural community or, a place that doesn't have where you don't have access to those kinds of providers, then that's gonna be a really solid bet for you. So go ahead and
Absolutely.
request it.
Go ahead and get it. I mean, none of us like it's uncomfortable for everybody, but
Mhm.
I'd rather be uncomfortable, as you mentioned, now than
Right.
devastated later. And so some of the things that you can do is when was the last time you had a screening? You know what I mean? You
Mhm.
might be good with getting it every 5 or 10 years, but has that time lapsed? Maybe
Mhm.
you wanted to investigate when's the last time you had one. I'm thinking about it. Where I moved to, I've been here 5 years. It might be time for me to have another one.
Mhm.
So I need to investigate that, reach out to that doctor and see is it time. We've talked about also knowing your family history. And that is so important. And I think that to me that we need to kind of pound that with a hammer. So often we don't know what the hell went on with our parents and
Right.
grandparents.
That's
because
right.
they kept it to themselves either to
Mhm.
protect us or they didn't find out because they didn't want to go to the doctor and find
Mhm.
out, or we just never asked.
Mhm.
Right. And of course, every doctor we go to ask our family history. And if that thing is getting blanker and blanker, you might want to start asking
That's
some
a problem.
questions. Yeah.
That's
Do some
right.
digging and be the example to share with your children what's going on with you.
One of the other things I think about colonoscopies, and people might think I'm weird for this, but when it's time for me to go get my colonoscopy, I actually get a little excited. And I'll tell you
Mm,
why. For anyone who has ever had a colonoscopy, I promise you they will all tell you it is the best sleep that you will
mm-hmm.
ever have in your life.
Mm-hmm.
It
So
is
true.
the best sleep you will ever have in your life. You're not out long, but
Mm-hmm.
it feels like you have probably slept for a whole week
Wake
when
up
you wake up.
refreshed. Like, I'm ready to do stuff. They be like, take it easy today. Well,
Right?
today's the day I can get some stuff done.
Exactly. So, don't look at it as, oh, it's a burden. I got to do all of these things to prepare for it. I'm going to be
Mm-hmm.
uncomfortable or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
But just look at it as this is another one of the things I need to do that I have to put on my checklist to
Right.
make sure that I'm good, that I'm
Self-care.
able to live for my family, that I can do the things that I wanted to do in life
Mhm.
and be okay with that,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
It is what it is.
Yeah.
And if you don't look out for yourself, who else is going to look
Nobody
out
else
for
is
you?
gonna do it
So
right.
put that date in the calendar, put a recurring meeting in your phone for when you need to schedule your colonoscopy appointment. Just do it. Just
Right.
do it.
And as time Joyner would say, take a loved one to the doctor too. You ask your parents, your neighbors, your
Hmm.
friends. When's the last time you had your stuff checked out? And encourage them
Hmm.
or take them to get it done as well. And the final thing that I would like to say is I've said this before. I like to do things around my birthday. It helps me remember if I've had them done or not. Of course, I would encourage you to write it down in a book, but just pick a time of the year if it's not your birthday that you get as many of the screenings as you need or as permissible around that time because then it helps you keep this. I find it to be an easy way to keep track. Maybe you want to use your anniversary. Maybe you want to use your kid's birthday, which is a
Hmm.
consistent time of the year that you're choosing. Okay, I'm going to make sure my stuff, my healthy stuff, that I want to make sure I'm staying on top of the exams I need for prevention of all diseases. Not
Hmm.
saying that you might not need a follow up or that you cannot go in between if something pops up, but definitely just to have a regular routine of when you get yourself checked out.
Agreed. Great point. And then, think about the fact that, there are a lot of people, famous people who died early from colorectal
Mm.
cancer. And colorectal cancer is the deadliest cancer for people under the age of 50.
Wow.
So a lot of younger people are
Mm-hmm.
are getting colon cancer and dying from colon cancer.
Mm-hmm.
And people are attributing it to the fact that younger people are eating a lot more processed foods
Sure.
than older folks. We talked about Chadwick Boseman a few
Mm-hmm.
weeks ago and the fact that
Mm-hmm.
he died of colon cancer in 2020. He was only 43 years old. But we've had football players,
Mm-hmm.
Eddie Johnson, Sam Mills, who were in their early 40s when they died of colorectal cancer.
Mm-hmm.
So we just want to make sure that we're raising awareness that this is not just an older person's
Absolutely.
illness. Like younger people are at high risk for dying from colorectal cancer. So everyone needs to get evaluated, check your diet, check your lifestyle choices,
Sure.
but definitely get to your doctor.
Absolutely. Totally agree. Well, we talked a lot of shit today. I mean,
So what's on tap for the herbal tea today?
So yeah, girl. So Tiana Taylor, as we talked about, was also at the Oscars, and she won an Oscar for the film One Battle After Another. She did not win in the category that she was nominated for individually, which was Best Supporting Actress. However, there were a couple of things with Tiana Taylor that I saw as tea in the media. People was going off because she was so happy for everybody.
Mm-hmm.
And so that
Black
had the
girl
people to
joy.
attention. She was having black girl joy. She wasn't mad that she didn't win. She ain't had a this some bull look on her face. Like she was up
Mm-hmm.
out her seat, black, white, old, young. She was just
Mm-hmm.
congratulatory.
Mhm.
And people have been dragging her for that, basically saying she was doing too much. And she like tweeted, "What is wrong with having joy in the world, especially a
Right.
world," I'm paraphrasing, "especially a world with so much sadness. And only
Mhm.
people who see the world through a lens of critique and anger and sadness will be upset at someone showing joy." And I
True.
think that's an important lesson for everyone. Hey, first of all, we can't all be winners.
That's
We're all
right.
winners in life, but we can't all be winners in specific
Mhm.
categories when awards are in place, right? I think it was amazing for her to be
It
happy for
was.
others and to know this was her first time being nominated. Like she just,
Mhm.
as they say, it's a privilege to be nominated. She happy to be in the
Mhm.
number. She was sitting on the front row.
Mhm.
All of that joy, just in and of
Right.
itself, to be recognized by her peers. Yeah.
Yeah, and that's something all of us should be able to take away from her,
Hmm.
right? We all should internalize that level of joy for
Absolutely.
other people. So, I'm glad you brought that up because we could use
Absolutely.
that.
Like it doesn't what they say, it doesn't dim my light because you shining. Like,
Mhm.
shine, baby. I want us all to
Shine.
win. Like Issa Rae. I'm
Yeah,
rooting for everybody black. And some
everybody.
of the white people I like. I don't
Mhm.
it's okay. It's okay. And then the second thing is there are three things about Tiana Taylor, but the second thing is at the Academy Awards, she also, after having all that joy, during the exit kind of processional, if you will, a security guard put his hands on her and shoved her forward. And
Mm,
we've seen the otherness of humans get out of pocket with our Black women, and they need to be checked. We saw this with Kelly Rowland at the Met Gala.
mhm.
And now we're seeing this with Tiana Taylor, where she, basically was like, "Don't put your hands on me. You're being very rude." And first of all, I'm very proud of Tiana Taylor because I've never seen her pop off, but she definitely gives me pop off
She
vibes
can.
if she wants to. But
Don't
she did.
cross her.
Ah, don't let
Mm.
the evening gown fool you.
Mhm. You see those guns on her?
Yes, that's what I'm like. She be working out. Like, yeah. And so I definitely feel like she was in her right to tell the person don't put their hands on her. She was
Mhm.
in her rights to articulate that the behavior was rude. But when I
Mhm.
saw the clip, I saw a Black man standing next to her. And
Mm.
I feel like, when are Black men going to start protecting Black women? You ain't got to
Mm.
know me.
Good point.
You don't got and I don't know if you knew or not, he was standing in such close proximity. We either, as Black women, always have to fight our own battles, which
Mhm.
is one battle after
One
another,
battle
and hit,
after
hit.
another.
Or it's other Black women coming to our rescue, and we have to tote the line together. And so
Mhm.
the takeaway for me is Black men, stop being so timid. And then saying, "Oh, we have strong personalities and we're such independent women." We have to be.
Have to be,
We have to
right?
be.
Because no one else is protecting us.
Nobody else is coming to our rescue. And so I would like to see more Black men come to our rescue when rescue is not necessarily needed, but certainly be appreciated. So when it's
Mhm.
needed and could be appreciated, yeah, we want you to step in, whether
Step
we
up.
know you or not. And then the third piece of tea that I heard about Tiana Taylor as well was that social media is going crazy saying that her and Zendaya got into it at one of the award shows and that they were beefing. And come to find out, they were showing each other love. And so they were talking loud, they were pointing at each other, they was shaking on each
Mhm.
other. They was being Black girl joy and all the extra stuff we do,
Right, and it was
and it was
misinterpreted.
misinterpreted probably by somebody who was not invited to this particular barbecue, but then sensationalized it in the media. And
Wow.
because they didn't understand the context. And so
Mhm.
we also have talked about that here. You got to know the context of what's going on. Look, I'm talking with
Mhm.
my hands right now, pointing at you. We ain't even beefing. We collaborating on the show. So, Tiana Taylor sums up the tea this week.
Wow, and you know what? I just think a lot of people are hating on Tiana Taylor.
Mhm.
I've been seeing so many posts about her, from her selection of dresses to these events to how she takes care of her body as if she's doing too much, right, to get the physique that she has. And even people just critiquing just her overall look, feeling like she looks too masculine or she doesn't look feminine enough. And at the end of the day, let Tayana Taylor be Tayana Taylor. Let her live
Mhm.
her life. She is living her best
Mhm.
life right now.
Best
She
life.
is happy. She's successful. She's working. She's creating a legacy. She's bringing her baby with her to these events and, exposing her to all of these things. Let Teyana Taylor live her life.
Right. Let her live her life.
Mm-hmm.
Let Black women, period, live our lives, especially when we happy. Like, come on, man.
Especially when we're happy. But it's funny that you brought up this second point about Teyana Taylor and the Black men kind of being in the picture, but not necessarily stepping up. But another piece of tea that came out of the Oscars was the fact that Ava DuVernay debuted her boo
Yes.
at the Oscars. And everybody is talking about this fine piece of God's handiwork.
Better come on here.
So you all probably have heard stories. Ava has been very outspoken about the fact that she has no children by choice. She was not married by choice, right? She chose to focus on her career and doing all of the amazing things that she's done without those distractions. However, she decided that this Oscars was going to be the perfect time for her to bring her honey with her to the show. Everybody is talking about him. No one knows his name, right? Or at least no one has disclosed his name. But apparently he is a professional pilot for celebrities. But he is a fine specimen. So if you haven't seen any of the pictures, definitely check them out. He is getting a lot of buzz. And so all the Black women on social media that I've seen are, doing the whole 3 snaps up for Ava this week.
Well, I'm going to do the little finger tap. I still don't know what it means, but I'm going to do my little finger tap for Ava DuVernay. I like her work, and I like that she got a boo on her arm. Hope it works out. Ava, if you come across this episode by some small chance of the world, ask me, you got any cousins, brothers, sons, daddies? I'm open to all family relations at this point. Send them my way. Please and thank you. Okay.
Please and thank you.
All right, Eboni, I think that was a good episode.
It was a great episode. Always a pleasure having this conversation with you. And I think this will be a great episode for us to share with our listeners that we would really like to do a sexy episode. However, we won't do the sexy episode unless we get how many subscribers? What do you want to say?
Ooh, I would say let's make it a George Washington. Give me a quarter. Give me 25 subscribers. Is that good?
That's too easy. That's too easy.
Okay, what we need? We need to, okay, that's bigger than the Harriet Tubman dollar that we were promised. What should it be? What you think? What should we think? It doesn't exist, but it should. I don't know. We need a Benjamin. What you want?
Feeling Benjamin.
You feeling Benjamin? So for those of you who don't use cash anymore, that's 100. We need 100 subscribers to do our sexy episode. Our Live Life More Abundantly After Dark. How about that?
Ooh, I like that.
Yeah.
After Dark.
Under the dark finger taps, whatever that means.
So subscribe on it can be on any podcast platform, but when we get to 100 subscribers, we are going to do a Life More Abundantly After Dark.
Yeah, I think that's going to be a good episode.
And like Tynisha said, we've been getting text messages, phone calls, and you all have been sharing suggestions for upcoming episodes, and we definitely want to hear those. So keep sending them. We'd love to get those, and we're going to do our best to meet all of those requests.
Right. We're so appreciative of the support. And I know we have multiple consistent listeners, and every one of those listeners is not subscribed. So please subscribe, like, and share. Please and thank you.
All right. Well, that's a wrap. So until next week,
enjoy life
and life more abundantly. Cheers.
Can I go back?